We begin this second half hour with the Harris-Walz presidential campaign picking up a huge celebrity endorsement Tuesday night. That's when mega pop star, global pop star Taylor Swift announced on Instagram that she would be voting for Democrat Vice President Kamala Harris in the November 5th election. The announcement came just moments after the first debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Mark Clegg is professor of musicology and American culture at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and the executive director of the U of M Arts Initiative. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're talking pop culture.
Thanks so much, Don. Great to be with you.
Now, since Taylor Swift made that post on Instagram, 9.2 million people have liked it, and it's been shared more than 1 million times. Does pop culture really influence politics?
I mean, in ways, Donald Trump as a candidate was a celebrity candidate, right? Coming off of The Apprentice and his TV career and sort of notoriety as a real estate developer. So, celebrity and pop culture, I think, is now synonymous with American politics.
And let's talk about many of our first recollections of celebrity endorsements, if you will, because they aren't new. And what comes to mind is the candidacy of John F. Kennedy in the 60s, when the late Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and other members of what was known as the Rat Pack, they campaigned on behalf of Kennedy. And some people believe that it's really what helped Kennedy win the White House. What does history say about that influence?
Well, Kennedy was definitely a surprise candidate in the 1960 election, and the Rat Pack was, of course, a famous group of entertainers, a lot of exposure on television, which was still a relatively new media. The debate, of course, that year was essential as well. But the Rat Pack actually became known as the Jack Pack because Kennedy's nickname was Jack Kennedy. And, Sinatra sang a song, High Hopes, and he actually rewrote the lyrics to reflect the Kennedy campaign. Peter Lawford, who was one of the members of the Rat Pack, was married to one of Jack Kennedy's sisters. And so there was a family connection. And that became, I think, a significant aspect of support at a time when, campaigns were shifting from something that was primarily based on the written word and newspapers and radio to something that was really a media extravaganza around television.
You mentioned Frank Sinatra and the song, so let's talk about music. Music appears to be important to political campaigns. My first recollection of music identifying a political campaign goes back to Bill Clinton's use of Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop. Then it was Barack Obama's use of Stevie Wonder's Signed, Sealed, and Delivered. You got the Harris campaign using Beyonce's Freedom. And last night we heard Taylor Swift's The Man after it was Harris exiting that debate stage there. How important is the music, more importantly, the lyrics when it comes to campaigns?
That's a great question. So political campaign music actually goes all the way back to the time of George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. That music has really been a way to bring passion and emotion into politics. Maybe some of the earliest, most famous songs are like The Hunters of Kentucky, which was for President Andrew Jackson in the 1820s, or Tippecanoe and Tire II from 1840. So there's a long history of political campaign music, but for the most part, those were songs where the lyrics were written specifically for the candidate. Whereas today what's happening is that political campaigns are grafting onto pop songs that are already famous, already popular, already have a fan base, and they're trying to graft that popularity onto their candidacy. So it's not so much that the lyrics they're not customized for the candidates, but often there's a hook, in the chorus that speaks to the candidate's message, or there's something about the candidate themselves that resonates with a certain genre in popular music. So you have today, for instance, Harris, like you said, using a lot of pop music, sort of recent hits, music by women and performers of color. You have Trump using sort of classic rock and sort of patriotic anthems. Lee Greenwood's, Proud to be an American. Very stark ideological difference, I think, in the soundtracks of both campaigns, and it's expanded from a single theme song, as you talk about Bill Clinton and using Fleetwood Mac, and now it's really a whole playlist. It's the rally culture that's around the candidates right now is very much a musical culture. It's a pop culture. It's a culture of vibe, and music is sort of giving the energy and the spirit to that vibe.
Yeah, our producer is telling me to wrap, so I need you to, in 30 seconds or less, answer this last question. Do politicians with political savvy to understand and harness pop culture, are they more likely to appeal to the general American public?
I think using celebrity tactically is a sign of sort of the flexibility of the campaign, the responsiveness of the campaign. And so if they're listening to what voters are doing on social media and they're responding to that in real time, they're showing a sort of an ability to respond to people. They're creating a relationship through popular culture between their sort of candidacy and individual voters. And I think that power of connection through pop culture, will make a difference potentially in this election, which is just razor close.
Mark Clegg is professor of musicology and American culture at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Thank you so much for joining us here on First at 4.
My pleasure.
Now, your Storm Tracker 12 forecast.
Some clouds are spilling out into